I have a confession to make, guys. Maybe you already know, but I really like mobile skirmish units. Yes, some other people don't feel the same, and that's fine. But generally, I find them a very fun and dynamic unit type to play with, dating back to basically any Total War game, all the way back to even, like, did Shogun? I believe the original Shogun Total War actually had horse archers, but anyway. The whole point being that, skirmish cavalry, skirmish chariots, definitely a lot of fun to use, can be very painful to play against if your opponent's very good with them, or in particular if they're overtuned. I get that, don't get me wrong. But, yeah, the Kislev dread sleds are one that on release were quite strong. These days, they cut a pretty good balance where if you're good with them, they can definitely be quite strong even still. But it's interesting that, these guys are not necessarily like... These days, at least, I don't hear as much about the dread sleds as I do, say, the scourge runner chariots, which granted, scourge runner chariot shooting attack is a lot stronger. Dread sleds are pretty good in melee as they ice across the sand here. Anyway, this replay from Shetland Apache's got two heavy sleds here, along with some Griffin Legion, a line of Kossars and Kossar spears, along with Ice Witch here. He's got some horse archers as well, contesting this Daemons army. Seekers trying to pull back and away from those archers. He's got more Seekers here, some Screamers. Looks like the Hellforged Bellowers, Regiment of Renown, Skull Cannon. Actually haven't seen it too much since the nerf, so I'm curious to see how it does here. Blue Horrors of Tzeentch, and a very, very brave Exalted Lord of Tzeentch that just dove in here and is going to find out that the heavy sleds have quite good mass. Ooh, it does look like they peel their surround, kind of letting the Griffin Legion take over, but Big Bird can actually path out of the Griffin Legion, so maybe, let's see, might actually lose out on the surround. It does look like the Screamers are going to try and swoop in and save it. We get a little summon of Furies as well. Yep, the Griffin Legion pulled back there. Chariots, meanwhile, ran through this front line, and so far, they're getting a little bit bogged down, taking some damage, but that heavy 110 armor coming into play. And so far doing some pretty good damage, but here come the Seekers. Ooh, that's potentially devastating. That armor-piercing damage, especially in a surround. The units in the rear, of course, getting that beautiful, devastating flanker. And that unit just gets absolutely deleted. Nice counter rear charge, though, from the Griffin Legion, who themselves are going to get their own charge bonus. Double duration instead of the double the effect. Yeah, basically similar, but not the same. And it results in the Seekers then being destroyed, although it does look like the Griffin Legion are going to pay for it in kind, so just layers of destruction there as the one sled does pull away. Literally 1+1 here, full unit of 1, and that extra. Anyway, yeah, Blue Horrors standing their ground, as are the Kossars doing the best they can. We do have a Kossar great weapon here in the back, kind of standing guard. They're using their pistols right now. The other Griffin Legion shuts down that Seeker in pretty quick succession. That one looks like... Yeah, I don't see the horse archers, so must have cut through them, but both sides trading pretty brutally here. If anything, the Demons taking a little bit of a lead on Kislev, but from a win condition perspective, as long as the threats to the sleds have been taken care of, the sleds can kill whatever amount of light infantry they need to. As far as like Blue Horrors and Nurglings are concerned, not really too threatening to the sleds. So yeah, like I said, I'm a fan of the unit type, and I get it's tricky to balance. It's a unit that if it's too good, it's like good at everything, right? It's good at melee, it's good at ranged, it has mobility to pick engagements and get away from bad engagements. Yeah, it definitely can be a problem. If any of those three, I would say, like the mobility, the shooting, or the melee prowess gets too far out of whack. And even, war wagons who have very limited melee prowess in comparison to, say, dread sleds or, yeah, the scourge runner chariots, even they had some issues recently where their speed was probably a little bit too fast, but after the speed nerfs, like, they're good, but they're balanced, and really that's what I'm looking for. As somebody who likes this unit type, and in general understands that units in this game need to be viable at their intended role for the rosters to work as designed and as constructed, so I'm not a person who thinks that, for example, that these units should be nerfed into the point where they're no longer usable or viable, because I think, especially certain factions, Slaanesh is a good example, actually. even though they don't have skirmish chariots, just in general, the fact that their chariots are not very good, it hinders significantly their faction identity and forces them into very specific play styles. Because you can't really, like, yeah, and there's also other issues with Celestia's roster, like a lack of great anti-large single entity damage. But anyway, that's besides the point. Here, the point is heavy war sleds, and they're going to charge into the Hellforge Bellowers, which, you know, the artillery chariots are similar, different problem, but one thing that does cause, I think, compounding issues here that I also should acknowledge is the fact that, how did the eye switch actually go down? Oh, no, she's over there. Okay. Yeah, a lot of units don't have, like, any pursuit animations or good pursuit animations, especially units that were designed, you know, way back in Warhammer 1, Warhammer 2. I mean, some of this stuff is, what, like 8+ years ago now, so, you know, you can forgive them a little bit for not having everything necessarily 100% locked down and understanding what everything they were designing for, but yeah, certain units don't have great pursuit animations. There's also the fact that, like, a lot of the times, yeah, like, units charge speed, charge animations might not always trigger. You know, exhaustion plays a big factor in that as well. Differences between speed of different units, but basically what it means is it can be very frustrating to catch missile chariots. Shetland there taking home a beautiful win, and ultimately does prevail. But yeah, I mean, the one dread sled does get shut down pretty hard by the Seekers and destroyed, which, you know, I do think, like, AP cavalry especially should be able to kill chariots consistently, and I think that's maybe one of the issues with a unit like Scourge Runners, for example. Coming back to the speed question, I don't think it's necessarily that Scourge Runner's shooting attack is, like, super overpowered. I mean, it's good, and if you expend the ammunition, especially on high-value targets, it will pay for itself, which I think probably it should. Its melee prowess is okay, but it's not really ever going to pay for itself in any meaningful way just in melee, so you really need to get the value for the missile damage. Maybe you could reduce the speed a little bit, but, I mean, elves are supposed to be fast, right? So there's an argument to be made that it goes kind of against the theming there. I don't know. I'm not an expert on these things, even though I've been doing this for a while. I do think maybe just a slight reduction in ammo count or speed, or, you know, pursuit animations is a tricky one. That's something that would be hard to go back and, like, add on units, but yeah, maybe looking at some of the other pursuit behaviors and figuring out if there's other ways that Creative Assembly could tweak it under the hood. That'd be worth them looking at, you know, sort of for the broad health of the game. That's not just applying to these units, but there's big units, big problems, for example, with air units chasing each other, and there pretty much always has been since Warhammer 1, depending on which units is chasing which units, and anyway, you can often just dodge the attack animations straight up. But getting back to the battle at hand, yeah, 202 kills for one Griffin Legion, only 49 kills, 800 value on the other, but generally good performance from both. Yeah, the one sled, 1,800 value, 17,000, almost 18,000 damage dealt. Pretty impressive stuff. Those units are able to carry in a pretty big way, and especially, like, shocking down lower leadership demonic units, not allowing them to really get a ton of value here. Really, one Seeker overvalues a little bit. Even the Hellforge Bellowers don't actually quite pay for themselves, so interesting game for sure. Definitely a fun one. Hopefully you guys enjoyed that. If you did, be sure to like, subscribe, hit that bell notification. Every time I upload a new video, you'll be notified. Thanks again. We'll see you next time.